Hi guys, welcome to Dad in the Don. So you'll see I'm by myself today. I was meant to be joined by Jordan, but he has had a last minute cancellation. He's had to stay behind at work, so I'm going to do this one solo. So just to give you a quick brief, we are going through the Premier League sack race. So this is basically managers that are under pressure, feeling the heat. That's why it's called the hot seat. So managers that aren't going to be in that chair much longer if it gets any hotter. We will run through manager by manager. We'll give a brief analysis. If you've got any comments, anyone you want to point out, anyone you disagree with, just stick it in the comment section. I'll read it out and get to each person as we speak. So, obviously, any comments up there now? So, we've just got the Don, the regular co host. He's at work. He'll be hosting tonight. So, be sure to watch that one. So, Daddy going solo. Yes. So, obviously, thanks, Jordan. I'll be by myself, but he has got a valid reason. So, we'll get straight back into it now. So, I'm going to look at the first manager here under the cosh as our mate David Moyes at West Ham. So, did really well a couple of years ago. I think his Europa and Conference League success has covered the cracks, so to speak, in the Premier League, because they were at a point where they were about to qualify for Champions League. There was a lot of hype about that, and then it just stagnated. They flopped down. They qualified for Europa. Again, the year after, they were supposed to be at least in Europa. They came down. They went into the Conference League. So all we've seen is them steadily decline over the last 3 seasons. So I think if you're looking in any job, you struggle to keep your job if you're not showing any improvement. Having said that, players like Declan Rice, they've got to step up and take responsibility as well, because his actions haven't been amazing this year. I think he could have handled it. He's club captain. You've got to come out. You've got to have the right attitude. Can't just put it all on the manager. But then obviously flipping it to the chairman. So do you just sack him now? Declan Rice is out of contract. I think he goes into his last year. If they get relegated, you're looking at Declan Rice going on the cheap. You get a new manager in, you keep him up, he plays a bit better, you get a bit more money for him in the summer. So it is, and I think he does probably deserve to be sacked because he has spent a hell of a lot of money on what I would consider just a load of odd chuff that none of us have heard of. So was it Odegaard was 35 odd million, and Nana 30 odd million again. So he's just buying players mostly from the French league, none of us have heard of before. Massive money on them. So I think he dug himself a hole. He's got his boy Danny Ings now, so potentially does he have to be given a chance because he's got the striker? I don't know. I still think he's going to struggle. So looking in who we've got here. So Sports Capital, big up Daddy, yeah, big up Mundy, mate. Anyone that doesn't know the Sports Capital, that's Mundy and his brand. Head over there, you got some good content on that one. Gary Richards, Klopp might be under pressure. Yes, I agree with you, Gary. I think he's under massive pressure, especially his behaviour is very irritating, touchline antics as well. I think do well not to slap him if he was on the other team. But yeah, his team should not be where it is, and we'll get on to him a bit later on during the show. So Mark Hill, I feel like things behind the scenes are far deeper than it seems at West Ham. Is Ings a Moyes signing? I don't think so. So yeah, that's a great point. So if it was a Moyes signing, they'd be stupid to sack him right now, because obviously you just got a player in, you sack him. But then if they're looking for someone else, you can't leave it too late because the window's going to close, new managers come in, they're not his players. So if you're going to sack him, you do it now. You let the guy spend some money who comes in, and you give yourself a chance of staying up. If you're not going to make that decision, you've got to see Moyes out for the end of the season, because you're giving them a striker now, which is something they've been lacking. And like we said, if you don't give him a chance, you sack him after February, new guy's going to not be able to make any changes. So you have to sack him now or stick with him. So again, moving swiftly on. So Frank Lampard. Massive pressure on Frank. For me, this game at the weekend, I think they're playing each other, aren't they? So could potentially say the loser of this one is going to lose their job. Be an easy one to say. Probably end up being a draw now, just so no one gets that. But he had the dreaded vote of confidence, was backed by the owner. Obviously, does that mean he's not going to get sacked? We obviously know in previous times when you get the vote of confidence, that's normally 2 more losses and you're out. So again, with that Frank, is it something? if they sack him, who's actually going to come in? Is it going to be Duncan Ferguson again, or have they actually got a proper manager lined up? So we got there. So Andrew Muir, just nice for it not to be the toon boss in the firing line for a change. Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think like Eddie Howe, I think he was put in charge of this just to be a babysitter after this Saudi takeover. So for me, I think they didn't see him doing as well, but he's made himself sort of unsackable at the moment, because you can't take a team like Newcastle, no disrespect, with the players they've got this season. That wasn't expected to be a top 4 yet. I think they were looking at 7th place would have been an achievement this year. So I think he's doing a great job. He was touted as the next England manager, but I think he's got bigger fish to fry at the moment. He's doing a fantastic job. So what about Lampard and Moyes swap? I'll tell you what, that wouldn't surprise me if they both got sacked after this week and there was a swap thing. But would West Ham take him back? He gave quite a lot of mouth, didn't he, after he moved to Chelsea? I think he wrote something in his book about like laughing whenever he used to see him losing. So I know the fans would be furious about that. So imagine if they draw and Moyes and Fat Frank get sacked. Yeah, so again, like you say, a draw could end up in a double sacking. But again, like Mark Hill said to me earlier, like privately, someone who isn't under pressure, his boy Marco Silva. Again, if Everton had given him a bit more time, maybe he could have been doing the same job there. But again, yeah, like I say, I don't rate Fat Frank. But again, at this time of the season, I think they should have done it before the World Cup. If they were going to sack him, would have given them enough time to look for a manager. I think Wolves, they did the perfect thing by sacking their manager before the World Cup, gave the guy like a game or two to see how the team did. Same with Aston Villa. MRI got a couple of games in there before the World Cup, gone to see what their needs are, and they've had like a month and a half to actually like think about it and get training done, etc. So I think leaving it till now is just stupidity, really. So obviously they're the two red hot favourites at the moment, and if you're looking at form, so you're going to look at like Everton. They've got 5 points in the last 10 games, same as West Ham, 5 points in the last 10 games. Carry on like that, you are going down. I think at the moment, 5-4 favourite is Moyes and 6-4 for Frank Lampard. So they are your two main contenders. So we'll move down a bit more. This was supposed to be Jordan's bit, by the way. So Jesse Marsch obviously was hanging on by his fingernails before the World Cup, managed to keep his job, and looks like they've maybe turned a corner now, would you say? I think it'd be silly to sack him, because they've basically got in all the players he wants, all the players from his former teams. If they were then to sack him now, then it was just a waste of money, and the new manager might not even want those players. I think obviously with Leeds, historically it's a big club. There's a lot of big expectation, but you've got to think about it. Like Bielsa, it stagnated for a year and a half. It was terrible to watch. The year they stayed up for their second season syndrome, I think if they'd gone down, they would have struggled to come back up. So for the fact that they're only in a relegation dogfight rather than actually nailed on to go down is an improvement for Jesse Marsch. So I think, again, he should be given time. I don't think they should sack him. I don't think he's done really anything wrong. Maybe his antics and stuff. But then if you're a fan and your manager does nothing, shows no passion, you're going to slate him as well. So when he's going over the top, like, what do you want? Do you want him to show passion, or do you want him to stand there like a robot? So I think with him, he's doing okay. And he's got Willy Gnotto. So he looks like he's going to be a tremendous player. So that could be a key weapon. And I think Patrick Bamford's back now. So that's striker situation possibly solved. I think they'll have enough to stay up. So I don't think they should be making any rash judgments there with Jesse. I think the other two are under a lot more pressure. So who have we got in here? So Andrew Muir. So on Facebook, Rafa has been touted for the Hammers job. I don't know, Rafa Benitez. I just don't think, is there a club he can go and do a decent job at anymore? For me, someone like Rafa Benitez, maybe one of those Saudi clubs comes in for him. Someone like that'd be a job he'd go to. They'd be the only ones that'd be able to pay him what he wants, and he'd have no expectation really, would he? He'd be able to get some players over. I think Premier League, I can't see him managing the Premier League again, to be honest with you. So issue is No disrespect to some of the clubs in the position they're in, especially with Everton. The board managed, yeah, exactly. So, what manager would go there? What manager would want to go there? I think Fat Frank's in a bit of a catch-22, really, like double-edged sword. He's damned if he stays, damned if he goes, really. And like you said, the next man in is going to swerve that like the plague. If Leeds were to sack their manager, Spurs were to sack their manager, even Leicester were to sack the manager, people would be lined up because it's a good project, good team, good safe. Unai Emery, that was a safe job to go to. Never going to get relegated. Big fan base, decent amount of money behind them, always a safe move. Everton, you're just thinking you're playing Russian roulette to be the first man to get them relegated, really. I think it's like 60 years they've been in the top flight, so imagine being the first man to get them relegated. That's your CV done for life then. But yeah, obviously, like going back in, Jesse Marsh, I think they would be absolutely stupid to sack him now. I think he's shown enough since Christmas to give him till the end of the season at least. So moving on now, I'm going to sort of doing it in bookies orders here. So like 8-1 was Jesse Marsh. You got 9-1 on Antonio Conte as the next manager gone. So it's been terrible. I think they've had 2 wins, maybe, is it, in the last... No, 3 wins in the last 10. All been second half comebacks apart from the Palace game. And obviously, like last night's performance, 2-0 up at half time, and they just did the opposite. They just folded. Let City have it. So it's obviously a tactic that Conte employs to try and shithouse the first half out and then give it a go in the second half. But you've got Son, Kulusevski, Kane, a decent back four, and some all right midfielders. So why do you need to play like that? So I think a lot of the problem is with Conte, but as we've seen with him in the past, it's not always the club's decision when it comes to like these sackings. Conte, if he doesn't get what he wants, doesn't get money, things don't go his way, he throws a tantrum. He falls out with the board and he gets a nice bit of compo. Like any sort of like Chelsea or Italian fan will tell you exactly the same. So I forgot on there. So for me, the loser of West Ham v Everton is going next. So again, that is the obvious choice, Graham. Most people would tend to agree with it, but I suppose it's like the nature of the loss. If you put in a performance, someone else out there, like in another job, say like Chelsea go and lose 8-0 in the next game, that's going to be more harmful than losing like a 1-0 to this game. But I think it's like a relegation 6-pointer. This is set up as the front of the sack race. And I'd be worried for my job if I was the loser of this game, definitely. So obviously going back into Conte, if I was going to put money on this, I'd say that he won't be the next one to go. But I think one way or another, he won't be there at the start of next season. And it'll be dependent on him getting money, basically from a compensation for being sacked or a mutual agreement to leave. So there we go. So we've got Jay on there. Obviously, I haven't seen him on it for a while, but good friend of the show. So I feel like teams like West Ham and Everton, they expect too much and they just need to come to terms with the fact that the league is harder these days and anyone outside the top 6 can beat anyone. Yeah, that's a good point, to be honest with you. Like, so you've got teams now like Fulham and Brentford are just showing you that. They've come in just with like a really basic set of tactics and they've just stuck to those tactics. They just know what works for them. They know what gets results. The managers are thinking a little bit outside the box and they're just getting the results. And you've got these sort of bigger teams that are a bit like dinosaur-ish with their management and they just expect to just keep rolling out points by doing the same thing. Anywhere in life, whether it's work, sport, anything, you do the same thing for too long, it becomes stale and you get found out. So I think he is right there. They need to lower the expectations. I think especially like with West Ham, they were expecting like to be in the Champions League 2 years ago and now they're fighting relegation. And then as well, like end up not giving managers enough time. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly the point. And like going with the Everton one, they sack Lampard. Who is going to take over tomorrow? Who's going to take his place? It's going to be Duncan Ferguson. And what's Duncan Ferguson done in his career, management-wise? Nothing. He just babysat a couple of times, while like mess up after letdown after letdown. So all he's done is babysit. they're saying they give it to Rooney. Have you seen Rooney's managerial career? It's a disgrace. He's three jobs at the moment. He's losing records. So he'd go there. He'd just be the next Fat Frank. So when you say Conte has been, would you say Conte has been backed by Tottenham? I feel if they don't give him money by the end of January, he will be gone. Yeah, again, and that's what Conte is. He'll come and do a job for you, but he'll want money. If you don't give him any money, he won't go anywhere. Same as Mourinho. They say, oh, they're these great coaches. But you give someone like Eddie Howe a job, he'd go there with no money and make the team better. Even Pep. Pep went to a relegation team, had no money to sign players. He'd make them play better football from day one. Where a lot of these managers, they just want to buy their way out of trouble, and it's not the way. You need to go in there. A bit like Graham Potter's experiment at Brighton. Obviously, he's struggling now at Chelsea, but that was just a perfect way of you give manager time, you slowly back him, you slowly let him get players in, you get the best out of the team, and the team grows like harmoniously, if that makes sense. If you just go in and throw loads of money at it, the players don't give a fuck. They're on mega money. They know the manager's not going to be there long because it's Conte. But again, I think like he's got enough signings in there. He definitely signed enough players, and what are you going to do? Throw another 150 million at it? I don't think that's the answer. So obviously they sacked Allardyce because they wanted to get into Europe, and now they're back where they was. Yeah, that's an interesting point as well. Like, so would you even say that West Ham were worthy of being in the European position when they actually got there, or they overachieved? Because if you've overachieved, it's like Newcastle. If they get in the top 4 this year, they've overachieved. So if next year they struggle a little bit and they're in 8th place and get knocked out of the Champions League, does Eddie Howe really deserve to lose his job for that? Probably not, but we know what happened. He will do, and then they get some big, like, high-profile manager in, which is what they wanted to do all along. So obviously, just going back with Conte, I don't think he'd be sacked, but I wouldn't be surprised if it carries on like this. He'll have another tantrum, and it could be leaving around the same time Mourinho did between now and the end of the season. So Brendan Rodgers, Leicester, start of the season, this was nailed on. He wouldn't last the season. So he had a fantastic turnaround before the World Cup. I think he won about 4 games in a row. Just looking quickly, so in their last 10, they've 4 wins, a draw, 5 losses, 13 points out of 10. If they carry on like that, they'll be fine. Obviously, they was aiming a little bit higher than being relegation fodder, but they'll take just finishing mid-table this year. And I think, to be fair, the players they've lost, for them to finish mid-table, that would be a achievement. And I think the compensation is the problem here, isn't it? They've got a lot of money to pay out if they sack Rodgers. So me personally, I think he's just being a bit coy. He's playing the game. He's lingering around. He's just after that combo. So let's see what you guys have been saying on here. So I was on about Allardyce at Everton. Yeah, again, that's he got sacked for basically just doing what he normally does, just being a steady Eddie. Was that when they spent like, they were buying players for like 50 million a pop, weren't they? That's when they were like buying cigarettes, and every player was a record transfer, and they just didn't get any better. They stayed in the same place as they always did. So Mark Hill for the Everton job. Yeah, I don't quite see that one working somehow. Although he was up at Leicester recently, so he might have been sniffing around a job there. Just a cycle of shit managers. If you sack someone, they just replace them with someone else who was sacked by another club. So yeah, so that's another great point, right? So if any of these clubs sack their manager, who is going to be the next man in? Who's the best manager available at the moment without a club? So what will guarantee to happen if one of these sack their club, say West Ham sack their manager, they'll probably go and try and pay compensation to like Nottingham Forest to take Steve Cooper or Thomas Frank. They'll try Silva. They try and poach these managers for their club because they can't actually find. There's no one out there without a job that really warrants replacing the guys that are in the position for me. So the last thing I need is angry Evertonians on my back. Have you heard them boo? Yeah, I think as well. If you go out there and start like putting out some questionable tactics against Fulham, you'll be in for the boo boys. So yeah, so like with Brendan Rodgers, just to wrap him up, I don't think he's in any imminent danger. I think if they go on a massive like 4 or 5 game losing streak, they'll sack him. But I think they're just going to try and see it out that he'll just like fuck off and not take the compensation. To be honest with you. Who we got there? Poch. Yeah, you're probably right there, Dan. Pochettino. Yeah, he is the best manager out there at the moment without a club. But obviously, is he going to want to come into one of these relegation teams, or is he going to want like the Tottenham job? Or the Chelsea job if they set Potter. He's not going to come in and do something like West Ham. Like he turned down Villa, wasn't it? He was linked with Villa. He's just been managing Lionel Messi and Di Maria, etc. He's not going to want to come back and be in a dogfight. So Ancelotti was the downfall for Everton. He was given too much money. Yeah, this was ridiculous, this appointment actually, Graham. So what did he spend? Was it close to 200 million? And he did absolutely jack shit with the team. I think, in fact, they got worse. So was he directly after Silva, I believe, wasn't it? So they sacked him for doing nothing. They brought Ancelotti in, massive money, and he did nothing. So again, and then what was his reward? He went to manage Real Madrid after that, didn't he? I think so. Just shows you do a shit job at Everton. There's still a job out there for you. So Poch overrated as well. Is that the other one Graham said? Yeah, so Poch overrated. Yeah, I would say for what he's done, he's on a bigger pedestal than he deserves to be, I'd say. Because, like, yeah, if he'd won the Champions League with Tottenham and then carried on and done something else, like pushed for a league, and actually gone to a team other than PSG where he's guaranteed to win the league every year, then you can rate him. But yeah, like he's underachieved a little bit at Spurs with the team he had before they had to sell everyone, and then he's gone to Paris Saint-Germain and done what like me or anyone else could do with that team. So Thomas Frank's going nowhere, son. So like again, money's a funny game. If you're offered the right amount of money, you will go. But I do genuinely believe Thomas Frank's happy where he is. I think some people have their comfort zone. They know what's good. Same with like Eddie Howe. If he was to be offered like the Man United or Liverpool job next, Chelsea job, I think you're better off just staying where you are, where you're doing well. Graham Potter's shown that. He's moved. He looks like he's aged about 20 years overnight. And he was even saying before he was considered a top coach 2 months ago, and now he's dog shit. So there's a reason why Poch is still available. Yes, so I think it's two ways. Top teams don't want him, and the teams that do want him, he's not accepting it. He's not dropping down a level to what he's been on. He's just basically being too fussy at the end of the day. So it'd be interesting to see where he ends up. So again, like Roger said, we're going to move on to Graham's mate, Potter. So Graham Potter, I think we've had some people calling him the best up-and-coming manager in Europe in the last 2 years. We've heard that phrase said, touted for every big job, future England job, blah, blah, blah. He's gone to Chelsea, right? And just to put it in perspective, last 10 games, he's got 9 points. They've scored 7 goals, let in 11. He is 14-1 to be the next man out, by the way, if you want to get some of that on there. But, like, you just look at it. So he's won 2, drawn 3, and lost 5 of his last 10 games. You're the Chelsea manager. Yeah, you've had injuries, but that squad is worth over $1 billion. You can't tell me that with that Chelsea team, you're going to be on the same amount of points in your last 10 games as Leeds United. Seriously. So I think with Potter, most of the time I would say they wouldn't sack him, but how you saw with Thomas Tuchel, he just signed Aubameyang, which was a striker he'd asked for. They lost the game just after the transfer window closed. Then they sacked him. What a stupid move. You think they'd be stupid to do it again? So if he's still there at the end of this transfer window, where they've just spent a shit ton of money again, by the way, if they sack him in February, again, they're not learning from the mistake. So I think he's got too many players. I think he'd be better off just getting rid of all the dead wood and just sticking to his squad like he did at Brighton. Do what he does works. Get rid of all the bad apples. Arsenal have done that. Arteta, to his dues, he's got rid of all the bad eggs from Arsenal, and they're playing better now. So I think the same needs to be done with Potter, but he's not enjoying life at Chelsea at the moment, that's for sure. So back on the comments, see if we've got... If this was on at 1:30 and the show is 2 a.m, What would happen, Phil? Don't know what that's all about. Must be cryptic. So half of Chelsea signings are gambles or going to be loaned out next season. It's a pointless project. Yeah, so like Chelsea, they've got like one team that plays there and then 7 teams that play out on loan. So what on earth is going to happen with all these players? They could probably field a team of their loanees that would finish mid-table in the Premier League, which is, funny enough, where they are at the moment. So what's the point in having them all on the books? You're not going to play them. Sell them all off. Don't be as highly geared as you are now. Get your FFPP back into place, and then go out and buy some players with the money. Surely. Bowley is the American Del Boy. I said he was the American Wes Wally myself, but yeah, I'll get your point on that one. So going back into Potter, I don't think he'll be sacked, but with this guy in charge, it would not surprise me one bit. Not one bit. So we've gone through the main ones. This is obviously we've touched upon all the people that we spoke about now will probably be where the next man sacked comes from. But Bournemouth manager, I've left Gary O'Neill out because obviously he's fairly new, but he has got the worst run in the last 10 games. 1 win, 1 draw, 4 points, 10 goals scored, 21 against. It's not looking good. So if he loses another couple more, he will be in this hot seat. But just giving him a pass for now, as I am with Nathan Jones, because as much as he's got the most punchable face in the Premier League behind Bruno Fernandes, he's got to be given a bit of time. He's only just taken the job and he has started getting results. But this guy, however, Klopp, so Mr. Untouchable, he's amazing. Right, yeah, he might have been amazing, but he's a bit of a crybaby now. So same team basically, bar Mane, that he nearly done the quad with last year. He's lingering in 8th, 9th position at the moment, miles off the top 4. And instead of being like the charismatic Klopp that everyone knows and everyone loves and everyone bums up, he's just complaining and arguing all the time. People are saying it's the 7-year syndrome. He did it at Dortmund. He did it where he was before, and now he's doing it here. So is it 7-year syndrome, or is it just he didn't replace old players in the summer? So as much as I'd say he has to take accountability, I can't see him sacking him because of what he's done. But he does have a lot to answer for, because you can't go and lose, 4-0? They just lost to Brighton. Had, 1 shot on target and 1 corner in the whole game? Come on, man. This is a Liverpool Football Club, and you've got good players at that club. It's not like I'm a Palace fan. I've seen some shit teams over the years. It's not like you've had any of that struggle in your life, son. So I've got on here. So Sports Capital, leave Bruno Fernandes out of this. He is my team's captain. Yes, Mundy is your team's captain, but he does have the most punchable face in the Premier League. Aspilicueta and Mount, most punchable faces. Yeah, they're up there. I think they are definitely up there. Constantly complains about spending from other clubs when they spend more. Yeah, exactly. That's Klopp you're on about there, isn't it, Daniel? And I would say that, yeah, he moans about all the other clubs, but then he does exactly the same. He's just trying to deflect from his own problems. Cheggers Capital. All right. Nice and jovial, as always, Graham. So just going back to Klopp. So, yeah, he has to answer some questions, and he has to take a bit of heat on this one, I'm afraid. So all the Klopp fans out there, sorry if it upsets you, but your boy is letting your club down. Most people in this chat could probably go and run your team and finish in the top 10. So you've got to pull your socks up, son. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, Daniel Bowden. Yeah, talking about Klopp. Yeah, that's fine. And then, obviously, we've left Klopp in there. So we've got to talk about this guy as well. So, again, he's not going to get sacked. He's 200 to 1 to be the next man sacked or leave his job. So even further up the list than Arteta. But if you just look at the last 10 games, they've won 6, drawn 1, lost 3. 17 goals scored, 7 against. They've got 19 points. That is 7 less than Arsenal have managed in that same time. So if that rate carries on, they get further behind Arsenal. You look at the start of the season, where Man City were meant to be and where Arsenal were meant to be and where everyone else was meant to be. He's not doing a great job either. And some of the comments he's come out with are really absurd, like he doesn't care. So, okay, Pep, you don't care. So in that case, when you play Burton and Wigan in the Cup, why'd you put a first team out if you don't care? Why do you care enough to go and win 13-0 in a cup game? over 2 legs against Burton Albion, but then you're saying you don't care about winning the league or the League Cup. So it's utter bullshit. His antics, again, they've annoyed me over the season. And when you see him on the sideline, all head in his hands, like overreacting, acting like a knobhead on the sideline. So the way I look at it, Pep, you've got your way of playing football. You've got all these amazing players, and then you go and try and win the Manchester Derby 1-0. What is the absolute point of trying to win that game 1-0? You leave yourself open to losing it 2-1 at the end. Like, what happened? If you'd just gone out there and just blown the doors off in the first half, like you do in most games, you haven't got to worry about that problem. But for some reason, in the big games, you play all defensive, you bench Cancelo, you just it just annoys me. Just changes from his identity. So what got him there is he'd go out, he'll blow teams away. The first game against Man United did four goals past him in the first 20 minutes, wasn't it? Never going to come back from that. It just goes tentative in big games. That's why, for me, he's never going to win the Champions League. Goes far too cautious when it's a big game. And these players that he's got, I don't think he's got first team, but then he keeps changing them so much. Certain personnel do not fit together on the same pitch. And for him, I can't obviously tell him what to do. He's won all these accolades and awards. I've done jack shit. So I'm just saying, for me looking out there, I see players like when Grealish and Mahrez play together, it doesn't always work. If he's got Foden there, he doesn't seem to know where to put his best lineup and what's the easiest thing to do. So he plays tentative. They go 2-0 down. Oh wow! Second half they come out and they play amazing against Tottenham last night. That is what he should be doing from the start. And it's the same for Tottenham. They do the same thing. They go behind, then they play great in the second half to come back. Liverpool do the same thing. They're letting goals, playing dog shit, come out in the second half. You don't see like Thomas Frank and Eddie Howe doing that. You see them just playing their tactics from the start. So I think Guardiola, obviously he's not going to be sacked, but he needs to just know that his chair's getting a bit hot because he's made stupid comments and messing around. Potentially could cost you the title. So if you cost your team the title, you deserve to be on this list. So obviously going through, that is all the runners and riders in this sack race. I think if I'm going to put my neck on the line, I'm going to go with Graham and say that if there's a loser in this West Ham Everton game, the loser of that game will be sacked. Yeah, I'm going to go with that one. And I'm going to also go with Mark Hill's one, that if it's a draw, there'll be a double sacking on the same night. So that's my basic rundown of the managers that need to feel heat. And I think obviously the two culprits are Everton, West Ham. But I'll tell you what, I would absolutely love it. Like Kevin Keegan said, I would love it if this man got put on the list. I don't know why. Every time he comes up, he just looks like an extra from Lord of the Rings. I just want to punch him in the face. Irritates me, over-celebrates, but well out of his depth. So I don't know if it's just him reacting to being in a job that he shouldn't be given to start off with. But if he lost his job, I'd over-celebrate, I think. But anyway, that was the sack race. That is my prediction. It's going to be the loser of the Everton West Ham game. And if it's a draw, it's going to be both of them. So thanks for everyone that was watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you're about later, the Don is going through the title race with a couple of guests. That's going to be at 8 o'clock tonight. So be sure to watch that one. Everyone in the chat, thanks for your support. And we'll see you on the next show. Cheers for watching, guys.